Hey folks, so I kind of want to talk to you guys today about a few things. The one thing I want to talk about is kind of consumer tribalism in games, and that's really got me going. And I've made this video a couple times. I've never released it, and I figured out why, because I always end up using games as examples, and I never want to release it because I know that no one's going to listen to me. If I use this game as an example, then this many people aren't going to listen to what I say, and so I'm not gonna name games much. I'm gonna actually be focused on what's happening. Now I talked about it a little bit previously, but the thing I want to talk about now is consumer tribalism when it comes to buying games. We're all aware that people do it with music all the time. Music groups they listen to, or books they read, cars they drive, watches they wear, clothes they wear, shoes. Like I said, people get emotionally attached to these things. Sometimes because it's the amount of money they paid, because they want to feel that special attachment. It could have been the marketing that was used on the product. Whatever. People, they identify with the stuff they buy. And unfortunately, that's happened a lot more in software and gaming. I kind of just want to talk about that because the growing trend so far had been to pre-order the game. And you would get bonuses because if we have pre-orders, then we know how many we've basically sold day one, the things you were getting and where you would get it. Because maybe you wanted a certain item out of two different pre-order packages. You can't pre-order the game twice. It doesn't work like that. So, and it started off as cosmetic, and then it moved into maps and then missions, and then it's gotten to where we are now, to where there was not that big, but there was a fallout over pre-order bonuses, and people didn't pre-order as much, and there was a lot of factors for that. But what kind of grew out of that, as I mentioned before, is the tier system we've got now, where you can buy the base game and have basic, the minimum, sometimes not even the full game, just minimum. And you can buy, a season pass that gives you different expansions, or the list goes on. And what ends up happening is, instead of having all that, you've got tier systems, and you've got games that have marked progression. You buy the minimum package, you get the worst, basically. You get the absolute worst, the cheap crap, whatever it is. Okay, well, in my example, let's pretend I'm pitching a racing game at you guys right now. The way it works is, I promise, it's going to be no subscription, it's going to be no expansion packs, it's just going to be the game, you buy it, you race, and then till my next game comes out. So you buy, there's, 3 different packages. There's the starter package, the fantastic package, and then like the elitist package. And, you could even price them that the elitist, the top tier package, is worth twice as much. You'd have to pay twice as much to access that as compared to the starter package. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, what happens is, in this racing game, if you buy the cheap package, you get the slowest car in the game. You get the worst pit crew, so it takes forever to change tires and gas up, or even repair crew's the worst, and you have a garage that has the space for 2 cars. In the elitist package, you've got, the fastest car in the game, you've got the quickest repair, you've got the quickest fuel up, pit crew, and you got a garage that holds 30 cars. And then somewhere in between that, you've got the middle package. What tends to happen in games like this is people start racing, they want an advantage, so they're like, I can throw a couple extra bucks at this, I can get a better car, and then just won't have to worry about the beginning. And then that, you can people just keep putting money in it. Well, I can do a little bit better, so I'll go up a package, and then you got the people that just buy the top package right out of the gate because they can see the advantage you can get. And what happens is, as time goes on, the people that spent more money on the higher packages that aren't necessarily good at racing games are now getting passed up by the guys who bought the cheapest package but put more time into it, or just have a little bit more talent, a little bit more natural ability, whatever. They get outdriven and they start getting beat. So what happens is the forums and the Reddit explodes with guys who bought the more expensive package are saying that the cars aren't balanced now because they're getting beat by basically the cheaper packages. And so you have these guys screaming that the slower cars need to be made slower, the faster cars need to be made faster, and that usually flies for about a couple months, and then the people still keep passing them. So it turns out to be, well, you need to make the faster cars super hard to get, like rare to find and rare to get, and put the gap, the time between getting in the cheap car and then getting the next car up, make it longer. Make it take longer. And so you get this artificial inflation of time, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, sometimes they lock it behind an experience package, like an experience bar. That's been like pretty much the most common. And I mean, it's just basically, it's garbage, because what that turns into is, not only is it bad for the players, because if you paid a little bit, you're going to be basically grinding forever, and it kind of sucks the fun out. The top tier guys, the faster the cars are made for them, and the slower cars are for the beginner guys, they're never going to be better at driving. You see what I'm saying? They don't have to push themselves. And on top of that, the developers now, they're tied to this because they're the ones that pitched the game. They made the tier packages, and for a few incentives, a few advantages, you can pay a little bit more money and get a better foot, get a better starting foot. And then now they're basically slaves to consumers who want more out of what they paid for the game. And so you've got this ugly, vicious cycle going. And I'll be honest, when you actually look into some of the games that had the tier packagings that did just fall apart and completely implode, that's where it all ended. It all ended with the consumers wanting more, that paid more, and that's going right against the guys who bought the minimum package and are stating like, I didn't get the game experience with this minimum package. You need to do, and then, like I said, the developer's a slave to that. And people don't see that. They see it as, the greedy developers. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is just the developer just wanting more cash, more money, and they don't care about the game. They don't care about the community. They're in it for the money, and they probably don't even plan on making another game. This is going to be their big payday, and then they're out. It's kind of where, to me, it's really hurting. And I've said before, it used to be all you had to do is say, well, I'll buy indie development studios only. And then that was a pretty good way to make sure you didn't get screwed over by big publishers. And then indie companies started doing the same thing the big publishers are. And they're actually, I'll be honest, the forefront of the tier packaging was on the indie developer side. That's where it all started. The big publishers followed suit because they said, hey, this works, we can do it. And that's kind of where I want to end this is, a little bit of self-reflection. What do you guys think? Because to me, it tends to be that the more someone paid for a game, the more they're willing to defend it. And, take up for them, take up for the development. And like I said, at the same time, it used to be that all developers were greedy. And then we had indie developers come out. And then some of them, like I said, sometimes it is they just want a payday. But you do have the guys that really care about their community, care about their game. And, because they needed to try to get more than just the base packages, they offered incentives and advantages for a little bit more money. And like I said, they become a slave to that. So they have to make the better packages perform better. Whatever you get in it, cars, spaceships, guns, it doesn't matter. It has to be better. And I just feel like, it's just, we're in this cycle that, a game comes out, it's not too bad in the beginning. And then as time goes on, and like I said, some of these games never even got out of beta because the community imploded because they had to make the gaps huge for the guys that paid a bunch. And usually the ones that paid for the top tier are in the minority. You've got an entire community and developer that have to cater to this minority that spent more, and they want the game experience bundled around them, basically. We won't talk about if that's right or wrong, because, obviously, if they're willing to give you twice as much for the same product, you kind of need to make it worth their money. But at the same time, at the expense of everybody else in the game and the community, is it worth it? And that's what, like I said, that's a developer thing they have to weigh. They have to walk that line. That is not a pretty position to be in at all. I just wanted to kind of get people talking about that. And I'm not blaming anybody, because if I did believe in a game and wanted to get it come out and I ended up putting down, $139 on it, yeah, I'm going to be more lenient because I believe in them. I'm looking at the big picture. The problem is, like I said, a lot of these games don't get out of beta because instead of spending development time on the netcode and desync and lag and optimizations and more content, the developer usually gets hung up on making these packages, making the distance between them further and take more time and give more advantage to the higher tier. And you get stuck in that and you can't ever balance a game out. And like I said, all the games that do this end up in this. I've never seen, to this day, I've not seen a game that had tier packaging that did not fall into this. And it's an ugly cycle. Like I said, I can understand why it was implemented, but for some reason, people aren't taking a step back and realizing that it doesn't work in the long run. But anyway, that's pretty much my video. It was quite a bit different. I had a couple videos lined up I want to get out to you guys, but I feel like this one kind of took precedence. So anyway, y'all have a good one. I'll catch you around.